Welcome, tender hearts who live for the pulse beneath the spotlight. Welcome to the place where glamour drops its mask and feelings dare to breathe. This is Turkish Spotlight Secrets. We spend so much time watching the gleam of premieres and rehearsed smiles that we forget the unedited part of fame. But what happens when the curtain slips on live television and the person behind the persona steps forward? Today, we bring you a moment that carved itself into the memory of viewers, a moment in which Baktaş, disciplined, composed, a master of silence, heard the name Yagmar Yüksel and let the world see the truth he keeps under lock and key. Before we dive into this storm of sincerity, be part of this family, subscribe, ring the bell so you never miss a heartbeat, and if you believe that honest emotion still matters, press the join button and stand with us. It began as uneventfully as a late afternoon breeze. The studio lights were soft, the laughter casual, the banter easy, the kind of live broadcast everyone expects to fade out without a ripple. Barış sat poised in the chair that so many have filled and so few have owned, his words careful and measured, his smile the professional kind that never overstays its welcome. The host drifted through safe questions, the crew relaxed, the chat trickled by with hearts and compliments. No one, neither the team behind the cameras nor the sea of viewers at home, anticipated the moment that would drag time to a halt. Then, tucked between emojis and greetings, destiny dressed itself as a fan's question. Barış, if you could choose again, would you choose Yagmar? The host read it aloud with that thoughtless confidence every live presenter learns, and in an instant, the air thinned. It wasn't embarrassment. It was heavier than that, like the moment before a storm when the world holds its breath. Silence settled around Barış. One heartbeat. Another. A third that felt like an eternity on television. His eyes dropped to some invisible place on the floor, hands pressed briefly to his face as if to erase the tremor he knew was coming. When he looked up, the gloss in his gaze said what words never could. With a voice that stumbled then steadied, he let a confession slip past his ribs, a line that detonated across the country. There are people whose names never fade, and hers, he said, was part of him, not written on skin but stitched underneath it. Dear friends of Turkish Spotlight Secrets, breathe with me for a moment. Who among you carries a name that feels like a scar and a lullaby at once? Who has heard a syllable and felt the room spin with memory? Tell us in the comments. We read every word. And if this sanctuary of openness speaks to you, remember, the join button is how you anchor this space and tell us to keep going. Online, it was a lightning strike. A clipped segment of the broadcast began ricocheting around feeds at a frightening pace. A hashtag blossomed in real time, an avalanche, hashtag Barış in tears. People paused mid-commute, mid-dinner, mid-life, stunned to see the man famed for restraint caught in a tidal wave he chose not to hide from. I wasn't ready for that, one user wrote. He laid his heart on the table without a safety net. Another chimed in, his eyes were a confession. That wasn't nostalgia. That was present tense love, alive, pulsing, hurting. Back in the studio, the temperature had shifted. The host darted toward lighter ground with the clumsy urgency of someone trying to rescue a porcelain vase wobbling on an edge. But Barış, with that quiet gravity that made people fall for him in the first place, lifted a hand and changed the course of the moment. It's all right, he murmured, wiping one stubborn tear that refused to be commanded. Some truths don't belong to press releases. Some truths insist. Life taught me through many voices, many lessons. She was among the most profound. In that simple declaration, dignity and vulnerability met like old friends. The internet drew a collective breath and held it. Speculation ignited like kindling. Not the sloppy kind of gossip, but a hope that felt both reckless and inevitable. You don't break like that over a closed door, someone posted on Instagram. That's not about the past. That's about the part of the future he wishes he could rewrite. Understand this, Barış Baktaş and Yagmar Yüksel were never just coworkers. They shared screen space that became a sanctuary for fans around the world. Their chemistry defied dialogue. Their glances did the heavy lifting. They never released a neat statement defining what they were, and yet the stolen smiles after shoots, the hands briefly touching when they thought no one was looking, painted a story the public didn't need press-approved words to believe. During the stream, emboldened by the crack in his armor, another viewer typed the question everyone carried but no one dared to ask: if she were here, right now, if Yagmar sat across from you, what would you say? The camera lens became a tunnel, and Barış, steadying his breath, spoke to it as if it were a pair of eyes he knew better than his own reflection. "Thank you," he said. "For lending me laughter on days it wouldn't come. For teaching me how to listen when silence was speaking. For letting me exist without performance. And if I ever made her carry pain I didn't see, tell her I'm sorry. Not in the polite way. The real way." Across phones and living rooms, hearts splintered and knitted in the same second, grief and hope folding into something impossible to name. When the broadcast finally limped to a close, Barış stood, closed his jacket, and walked out without a single word to the press waiting like sentries. Their microphones hovered, but his expression drew a border you could feel. He had emptied himself on camera. There was nothing left to trade for a headline. Hours later, at a time when only insomnia and regrets are awake, a post appeared on his profile, a photograph of a brittle leaf kissing the surface of a lake, ripples widening until they forgot their origin. The caption read like a poem left on a windowsill: "Some circles come back to the shore. Others stay in the water and become memory." No tags. No names. Just a soft ache for anyone willing to meet him there. Interpretations multiplied by the minute. To some, the leaf was a farewell, the image of a beautiful thing surrendering to the current. To others, it was a promise disguised as melancholy, a way to announce that he was brave enough to turn around, brave enough to knock. Whatever it was, the only certainty was that he had never been this unguarded in public. And that unguardedness, rare in a world of filters and scripts, became an unexpected balm to people who had been looking for proof that famous hearts bleed in familiar ways. Meanwhile, the waves kept rolling toward Yagmar's account. Her comments filled with a chorus: "Did you hear him? Do you feel it too? Sometimes love survives the credits." She answered none of it, choosing the elegance of quiet. Then, the next day, as if she wanted to untie a knot without tugging too hard, she posted a single story. Plain background. One line. What is true inside does not need a megaphone. It wasn't a yes or a no, it was a whisper that could be read two ways at once. Some took it as a sign that the flame hadn't dimmed, only retreated to safer rooms. Others decided it was her way of closing a book with both gratitude and finality. The truth is that ambiguity, when love is involved, isn't cruelty, it's honesty. What remains indisputable is the mark they left on each other. Long after the closing scene, their names travel together in conversations like a pair of notes that sound better in harmony. A colleague from a set they shared, speaking on condition of anonymity, offered something that pierced through the noise. They had a frequency most people never find. You could watch them across a room and see how it worked. One lifted an eyebrow, the other answered with a breath. You can't buy that. You can only stumble into it and hope it lasts. It was the kind of testimony that deepened the ache and made the skeptics go quiet. Then came the twist no one saw coming. A local network, chasing the echo while trying not to look predatory, let it slip that they were exploring a joint interview, just the two of them, centered on their professional path and the strange, soft aftermath of what they meant to each other. Managers have not confirmed a thing, and to be fair, denials or negotiations could be unfolding behind doors we'll never open. Still, the idea alone was enough to send timelines into feverish speculation. What if life hands them one more scene, a fan wrote in a forum, one that doesn't need scripts or costumes? Stranger things have happened than reality taking cues from a story once told under studio lights. And so, we wait. We watch their posts the way sailors read weather, looking for shifts and patterns only patience can reveal. In an era where genuine tenderness is often a performance, seeing someone like Barış choose to bleed in public felt like a small miracle. Perhaps there will be no grand reunion, no staged confession to wrap this up with a bow. But the words he spoke, and the way her sentence drifted into the morning, have already done their work. They reminded us that love doesn't end when contracts do, that sometimes it survives as a quiet companion, a shadow that gets longer at dusk. We've reached the end of this chapter here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets, but not the end of the story. Do you believe in second chances? Should Yagmar step into the light and answer the call he didn't try to hide? Tell us what your heart says in the comments, we are listening. If this journey through tenderness and truth resonated with you, like the video, share it with someone who keeps a name tucked away the way he does. And if you want to become one of the pillars that holds this space open for unguarded moments like this, tap the join button now. Your support keeps the lights warm and the conversation honest. Until next time, we'll be here, guardians of the stories that prove gossip can have a soul, watching for the moment when thank you turns into welcome back, and when two people separated by silence find the courage to let their hearts speak again.